Chaos on Capitol Hill. Democrats and protesters turning the Brett Kavanaugh hearing into a three-ring circus. President Trump reacting minutes ago on Twitter saying, the Brett Kavanaugh hearings for the future justice of the Supreme Court are truly a display of how mean, angry, and despicable the other side is. They will say anything and are only looking to inflict pain and embarrassment to one of the most highly renowned jurists to ever appear before Congress. So sad to see. Senate Dems hijacking the hearing just seconds into it over a dispute about the release of the Supreme Court nominees' records, claiming they haven't had enough time to go over them.
42,000 pages of documents that we have not had an opportunity to review or read or analyze.
You're out of order. I'll proceed.
We cannot possibly move forward, Mr. Chairman,
I
with this
extend
hearing.
a very warm welcome
we have not
to
been
Judge
given
Kavanaugh,
an opportunity to have a meaningful
his wife,
hearing.
Ashley.
Mr. Chairman, if we cannot be recognized, I move to adjourn. Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn. We have been denied real access to the documents we need.
What is the rush? What are we trying to hide by not having the documents out front?
It is regular order for us to receive all the documents, that this committee is entitled to.
Wow. The RNC calculating Democrats interrupted over 60 times. And when they weren't doing that, Capitol Hill police arrested roughly 24 demonstrators for rowdy disruptions like this.
Alexander Hamilton wrote in the Federalist Papers, Mr. Chairman, could I pause there until the room is cleared?
Surely I would.
Okay.
Kavanaugh is one of the most distinguished judges. Mr. Chairman, I think we ought to have this loudmouth removed.
Let's bring in Brett Baer and Dana from Washington, D.C., near all the action on Capitol Hill. All right, Brett, we'll begin with you. We're hearing that the Senate Democrats coordinated the disruption with some of these protesters, who I believe were from the Women's March mostly, as you remember. What does that tell you about the level of energy on the left with regard to this Kavanaugh hearing?
Listen, they have not done a great job galvanizing the opposition, and they know, as it stands right now, that Democrats don't have the votes to block this nominee if, as expected, all the Republicans stand firm and they vote for him. And Democrats, even there are a few red state Democrats who are considering, voting for him. So they know that the votes don't go on their way. We know for a fact they coordinated as far as the beginning of the opposition to say they needed more time, a number of different pre-written statements that you could see all the senators reading. As for the protesters, that now is a normal thing that we have seen really for the past 31 years since Robert Bork nomination.
Yeah, and it usually just happens with the Democrats. I don't know how they think that can galvanize any independents, but I guess they're not trying to galvanize any independents. It's just the left-wing base they need to placate. We'll begin with some questions and go around the table. Greg Gutfeld has a question for you, Brett.
Hi, Brett. Good to see you.
Greg. Good to see you.
I have a theory that most of these hearings are like kids playing soccer. There's just no score until the end, and then you settle it with, penalty kicks. Nothing matters. We know what the vote's going to be. We know how this ends. Why don't they just adjourn and call for a floor vote? Why do we keep doing this kabuki clown show? It's a rolling tantrum. We know that the people aren't going to vote for him, We know the people who are going to vote for him, We know that now. Why are we wasting so much time and energy on this garbage?
Because advise and consent is basically their role. They need to go through the confirmation hearing. They need to ask the nominee questions about his record. You're right. I mean, even the Democrats on the committee, Cory Booker and others, conceded they were a no vote weeks ago. As far as getting more documents to be transparent, they've already made up their decision. They're saying it is for the benefit of the American people. I see what you're saying. It's the way that they go through these things. I think one of the most interesting speeches today was Ben Sass, Senator Ben Sass, who basically gave a schoolhouse rock of the three branches of government and the role that the legislature is supposed to play, Article 1 of the Constitution. And he's going to be on the show tonight. We're going to ask him about all that.
Nice plug.
All right, we'll be tuning in there. And I believe we have Dana Perino up and ready. There she is, Dana, from Washington, D.C. How are you?
Good.
I just had a quick question. I know you have a lot of inside sources over there on the Capitol Hill. What are you hearing? Who do you feel won? Do the Republicans think they had a good day? Or do the Democrats think because they created all this drama, did the Democrats feel like they scored big at today's hearing?
Well, I think the Republicans think that they are playing a longer game. So they're looking right now, and the reason we have these hearings is, as Brett said, it's just part of our process. But if you're a Republican and you're in the Trump White House, you're thinking, well, 4 days of a hearing for a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court, not so bad. I think the Democrats might have thought they got some shots in today, but they're kind of ephemeral. I would say this. The Democrats spent a ton of time today talking about process. And in my experience, if you're talking about process, that probably means you don't have much else to go on, and it doesn't last very long, because as soon as we get into the hearing tomorrow, where you have the nominee finally answering questions that are hopefully of substance, then the process questions will probably fade away. The Democrats have decided that they had to do something to show that they're base, that they're willing to fight. They've had 9 weeks. They've not come up with a coherent, long-lasting argument against Brett Kavanaugh. They're just against him overall. I did think it was interesting, Jesse, that the Democrats never seem to be mad at Senator Harry Reid, who made the decision to break those protocols years ago, and that has led to this moment where you only need 51 votes to confirm a Supreme Court nominee. The Democrats' best hope would be to try to win more elections, of course. But what they did today, Jesse, is they put Democrat senators in red states, those ones who are up for re-election, in a real bind. They already have it tough. This does not make it easier for them.
Yeah, Indiana, West Virginia, Missouri even, all red states that the senators could be in tough trouble. Jedediah is here in your seat, Dana, and she has a question.
I'm trying to hold up the Perino fort over here.
At least your feet will touch the floor.
Barely, almost. I do have the pillow, though. I wanted to ask you that one of the funniest things to me today was that Democrats were trying to paint it like they didn't have enough information to make the decision. Like, oh, if we just had a little bit more information about him, it might sway the tide and we might support him. While you have Cory Booker, while he's saying those things, sending out fundraising emails saying stop Kavanaugh, and I'm sure that was going for many Democrats across the board. Why is this a strategy they use? Everybody knows that these Democrats already are on record saying they're not going to support him. Why go this route?
Well, one is that if you are running for election in 2020 as a possible presidential candidate, then you want to make sure that you're on a record. They also did it because Chuck Schumer yesterday apparently held a conference call where they organized this sort of protest against Grassley based on the process points. But also, to be fair, what Senator Booker is saying is that I've already decided I'm not going to vote for you, but it is my duty to uncover everything I can so that my constituents have full information. I agree with you. It is futile. If you're already going to vote against him. And I thought at the beginning when they started that Senator Grassley could have said, oh, Senator Hirono, you are open-minded on Brett Kavanaugh. That's great.
Right.
Like, what could we do to help you get to a yes? And she would have said, there's nothing you can do.
You know what's interesting is Senator Grassley, at first on Twitter and elsewhere, was getting a lot of grief for not like throwing down the gavel and saying, all right, that's enough, just move forward. His MO was to let everybody air out their grievances, let it play out, and then move on. And frankly, he got control, at least of the Democrats, after they kind of aired out all that they were going to do.
And there was an interesting moment there. I believe it was a father of one of the Parkland school shooters. His name, the dad, Fred Gutenberg. And there's an image that's going around the internet of when Fred tried to approach the nominee and tried to shake his hand afterwards. And it's being played in the media as the nominee rejecting the handshake of a Parkland shooting victim. But if you see the video, and I want you guys to react to that, it was a chaotic, quick moment, and the video shows Kavanaugh kind of being confused and having someone come after him with an extended hand. And, the hearing had been very rowdy all day, and, security kind of stepped in and he moved into a different direction. This gentleman, who we have, great empathy for because he lost his son, is on CNN and MSNBC tonight. Is this a moment you think that, is going to make an impact with these hearings and in the rest of the country?
I'll go first if that's okay, Brett. So as soon as I saw that posted, I thought they're going to try to make a really big deal out of this. I know Brett Kavanaugh personally, and actually if you look at the character witnesses from both sides of the aisle that have spoken about what a great man he is, that this is not something that Brett Kavanaugh would do if under normal circumstances. I don't think he knew what was happening. You're right, Jesse. If you were watching the hearing this morning, every 2 minutes there was another yell and a scream and a protester. His children had to be escorted out during that period. And when they go to take the first break, he's been sitting there for 3 hours. His back is turned. The man comes up to him. I have no doubt in my mind that had he known, he would have been willing to shake his hand. But when the security is like, let's go, because you don't know what is happening in the room, I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I would not underestimate the power of an image like that, and especially in the age of social media, for it to get around and for them to try to make it stick.
Of course, yeah. And in fact, Senator Kamala Harris has already tweeted out saying if he can't shake the hand of a victim of gun violence, how can we be sure that victims will have a say in the court? Listen, as you see in the video, it's even slowed down. It's only a second long. The still image is obviously right there, but it had been a morning full of protests. And let's not forget that this is a Supreme Court nominee who now has a lot of security, and it is, you know, it's a precarious time, and he doesn't know who's walking up from the outside, so it lasts a second. I think that there will be a lot made of it, but in context, it's a different story.
Dana, Katie Pavlich here. Good to see you. Watching you all day when the hearing wasn't on. Can you talk again about the character witnesses? I think there's been a lot of attention paid to what Democrats were doing today, some of the things that they're saying, some of the smears that they lobbed toward this nominee. Kamala Harris essentially accusing Brett Kavanaugh of being racist and not applying the law equally and fairly depending on who was in front of him in terms of his decisions. You had Lisa Blatt, who's a self-described feminist attorney on the left, talking about her experience with him. You had Condoleezza Rice, who you worked with, saying that she hands down could vouch for his character and his integrity, and saying that he seeks truth and facts. Can you just talk a little bit about how important those statements were that came at the end of the day?
Well, I think that it was such a contrast to what you saw earlier in the day with the senators, right? So when you have, finally, you get the non-politicians there to just say, hey, I'm here to introduce somebody that I know and that I care about and that I believe in. And you can take it from me or not, but this is what I believe. Those are very credible people that have come with a lot of integrity and decency. So I think that helps a lot. There's a few other things. Remember, the ABA, which is pretty left-leaning, the American, the Lawyers Association, gave him a well-qualified rating. That's their highest rating. But also, if you look at his decisions over the past 12 years on the D.C. Circuit Court, his colleagues, both Democrats and Republicans that have been appointed for those lifetime appointments, they voted with him or sided with him about 90% of the time on average. So that says to me that he's ruled for and against Republicans and Democrats, and that he just looks at the law. And in his opening statement, he said the same.
So, you know, I'm watching, so I think you guys are making so many excuses for this nominee. But the fact is, even as I mean, it's incredible to me that the Republicans dump 42,000 documents the night before a hearing, and you guys don't say, well, you know, that's not fair. You know, who can read 42,000 documents overnight?
They're not going to read them, Juan. No one's going to read them.
That's just beyond the pale.
It's like Obamacare.
The most memorable thing was, as you say, not only that he snubbed the guy by not shaking his hand, but then you have these women in the back dressed like Handmaid's Tale, and they're saying,
that was the most memorable thing?
That was one of the most memorable things to me, because what it's saying is, if you look at the issues here, you look at a guy who is a political activist, not only working in the Bush White House, but working with Ken Starr on the Clinton impeachment, coming right after President Trump is attacking Jeff Sessions in the Justice Department. And here's a guy who has said, I'm not sure we can bother the president with any criminal or civil matter while he's on. So maybe we should leave him alone. You don't mention this.
No,
but I'm going to tell you something. When the American people are asked right now about this, and I'll put this to you both, you see that there's less support for this Republican nominee than there was for Gorsuch. I mean, it's unbelievable. Why is there only, I think it's 39, 38 people say he shouldn't be confirmed?
Yeah, two answers. One is I think a lot of the people polled so far haven't known him or met him, heard from him. Today, his opening statement was probably the first time that they had heard from Judge Kavanaugh. Two, you're right, the 42,000 is a legitimate question, but they didn't have to ask questions today. The questioning is tomorrow, so they have 24 more hours to look at the 42,000 documents, and they can ask a lot of questions based on that. It was released by the National Archives last night. And three is that, listen, the votes are not there. And so when you look at 307 opinions, Judge Kavanaugh said, read the opinion. That is the judge I am. And even praised Merrick Garland in his opening statement.
Can I jump in here real quick? Because Juan brought up a good point, the Handmaid's Tale character. This is suggesting that if Kavanaugh makes it, America is going to become a dystopian disaster filled with misogyny and forced pregnancies and brutality against all women. The old Democratic Party would have seen that as hyperbole. Now it's just meat and potatoes. This is exactly what they believe. This is what happened when Brett mentioned the Bork. It started with Bork. And it's just gotten worse every time when Republicans put forth a nominee. It's a fucking circus.
All right. Well, Gutfeld is fired up, and we're going to discuss the Kavanaugh hearings later in the show. Brett, Dana, thank you guys very much.